leads me into the last point that I wanted to talk about was the mental health crisis that we created. It wasn't a product of times changing. It wasn't a product of technology. It was a product of policies put in by politicians that made the mental health crisis, which was already pretty bad if you took a deep dive into the numbers, they made it exponentially worse. And it's not even comparable. I do remember, I believe it was May of 2020, they released a stat that said doctors writing pills for anxiety in April 2020 went up 1,000%. That's crazy. That
Mm.
there is something seriously wrong there. And one of the things that I think people don't understand or don't want to understand is that we are social creatures. We are meant to be around other people, not digitally, because we tried that and we see the results now. We need to physically be with other people. That's why going to a sporting event and cheering on a team with a complete stranger is somehow satisfying to our brains. We are social creatures. And wow, this looking at the numbers for the mental health crisis is really, it's crazy, but it's happened so quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think too, a lot of, like, I know somebody who was doing a report on the limited availability for college kids at campus for like psychologists and counselors and therapists and that sort of thing. And it really is. I mean, you have, I don't know, let's just say a campus that has 10,000 kids. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what this really is, but 10,000 kids and they have like four counselors. And I mean, you take kids away from their home, their environment, where they're used to, and then you put them into this situation where they're so far away that they kind of have to, they've got homework, fitting in, friends, maybe sports, they've got relationships. So I mean, they've got all this stuff going on while they're alone, no family, they got to figure things out, and you have this limited availability of resources through mental health, and you add the pandemic onto that, on
Mhm.
top of people who already had you know um, anxiety or depression before, and now all of a sudden they can't see anybody. I
Yep.
mean, that's just a way to skyrocket it. I mean, it's definitely, the virtual visits and the telehealth have helped, but I mean, this small supply of providers that can give this treatment to people that need it, and like what you're talking about, I mean, it's rising and it's not stopping, that's for sure.
Here's the image I want to try to paint in people's heads. You're 10 to 12 years old. Think about how you were at 10 to 12, particularly guys, because we were way more active when we were 10 to 12 years old than we are now. Think about that. You're in school, you see your friends regularly, you have after school activities, maybe sports, maybe something else, but you have other activities where you go pursue a hobby or a passion outside of school. All of that in one day, gone. And all you have is your room, maybe a laptop that the school gave you just so you can do school online, not seeing face to face. You don't get the education that you were getting. You don't get the interaction with your friends, which I truly think there's a link between having good relationships in society and doing well. I'm obviously those exceptions to that, but I do think there's something there. All of this stuff on a young person's like 10 to 12 year on a kid's mind at once. You hear the news saying, well, if things happen the way they happen, 2.5 million Americans are going to be dead by 2021. And then you see your mom and dad, maybe they lost their job. Maybe they're not having, the best time in their marriage because of the stress and the pressure that the pandemic threw on it. And here you are, this 10 to 12-year-old kid, and you have no idea how to process all this. So you're there completely overwhelmed. Nothing is the same, up is down. And then they're like, oh, yeah, and this is not just going to be 2 weeks. We're going on 2 years. So it's,
Hmm.
I think about all that. I'm like, wow, how would I have been if I was 10 to 12 years old when this all hit? Because I was a pretty active kid. I liked to go outside. I like to hang out with friends a lot. I like to do a lot of different things. I didn't like just sitting at home doing nothing. And then they're like, you know what? You have to sit at home and do nothing because we're not going to let anything open. And if they do, we're going to arrest them and fine them. So it's just really crazy. And then people wonder why overall in the last 2 years, children's GPAs have gone down, the amount of dropouts have gone up because they're mentally a wreck and they can't focus the way you need to focus to do well in school. And I think we need to address that and realize what we're doing is not good. And before it's too late, which we may already be there, who knows?